All right, hello out there. Dave here again, and welcome all of you who are viewing. Today we're going to do a little something a little different. I'm working on tone paper. In case you don't know what tone paper is, tone paper is not so much the color, which has a lot, somewhat to do with it, but it's the value of the paper. It's not white paper. And value means is before it's the lightness or the darkness of the paper. Most tone paper drawings, uh, we use a white ink pen for the light and a black gel pen. Both of these are gel pens for the shadows, just these two. Now the paper is the mid-tone. So the paper has to be in between. The paper has to take the lights and the shadows, and we're going to use the paper as the middle value. Uh, as you can see, I've got a few different ones here to show you what they look like. This is a relatively lighter one, paper. This is about the same value, only it's a gray. Now we get to a little bit darker. It's kind of an olive green, and we've got the brown. So I'm going to see which one should we use this time. I'll say we'll try the dark one. We'll try the dark brown. So let me put these up. And now we're going to get started. First of all, on tone paper, it's very important that the hand sensitivity. In some of my earlier videos, I wanted to show that it's very important to have control of the pressure with the pen. Most of my work, we're going to use pens, like I said before, to tighten up your hand. You can't erase, so you don't worry about erasing. This is not to be perfect. And tone drawings, not only it could be a finished work within themselves, but a tone drawing, I like to look at it as the next step after this is actually painting. You can change your composition, you can study the light and value quite a bit with your tone drawings. When you're drawing on white paper, basically what you do is put in the shadows and the paper is the light. With tone drawings, you actually apply the light, just like in oil painting. But we're not using paint. But this will be your next step. You can change the composition and really control your lights and your shadows, especially your lights, prior to actually doing the painting. So the first thing we're going to do, just to show you a range of pressure control. We're going to use the black first. The first thing is naturally the darkest. It's almost like the value scale. This would be extreme darkness, right here. That's the extreme darkness with this black ink pen. And that's using full pressure. Of course, anything less than that, you have to lighten up on your hand on the pressure that you're actually applying to the pen and the paper. So therefore, this would be a little lighter. And a little lighter until you get the idea. And the same variation we can do with actual white pen. Full pressure. This would be full pressure. With the pen, the harder you press, the more light intensity that you show. That's the most intense light you can get with heavy pressure like that. And of course, you get less illumination, the lighter you press. Just the opposite of the shadow. That gives you an idea of the range. So what that means is we're going to go back over our regular forms. We're going to start out with the cube. Here's the cube. That's our basic cube in 2-point perspective. Now we're going to lay in our cast shadow. Somewhat like that. First thing I'm going to do is shade in our cast shadow. Now as I crosshatch, I don't have to really press that hard. Every time you change the angle, it gets a little darker. Even though I want this cast shadow to be dark. This is going to be our darkest area in the drawing. Now I'm going to shade the shadow side of the cube. Remember, where the two planes meet, there's an illusion of it being a little darker. We don't want a flat darkness. We want some atmosphere in there. Now we're going to apply the light. Now in this particular instance, I'm going to leave the facing of this cube blank. That's our mid-tone paper. But around it, I'm going to put some atmosphere. And as though this is on, let's say it's on a table. It could be on a ground plane. We'll leave it on the ground plane. I'm going to put just a slight, this is all contrast. This is what makes your drawings look three-dimensional. Contrast. Contrast is simply having the values next to each other, the lightest and the darkest, and anything in between. But mainly, when you have light and dark meet, you get the ultimate contrast. I'm I'm doing this very lightly. You don't have to press too hard. It's about changing the direction of your. This is not so much hatching as scribbling. In my previous video of Easy Trees, I introduced you to a technique called scribbling, but it's control madness. It's not just absolute craziness. You're trying to get a certain tone or value, and as I change direction, I'm really conscious of the overall value to make this cube sitting on the ground plane. And this is our first drawing using tone paper. Now we're going to go right into a sphere right next to it. As such, and remember, the cast shadow is oval. This is a term technique called drawing through to get that cast shadow right. I will put this cast shadow in. Remember, all cast shadows are the darkest right up under the actual object, and they kind of fade out somewhat from the object. So with this one, I'm going to make it the darkest right up under here. Take our time. Really darken that area real good. Make it a nice oval. Now I'm going to press a little bit harder. All right, up under the sphere. Nice and dark. Now my first shadow on this is going to be like this. We're going to follow the form. Very simple. Then we'll shade it a little bit more. Cross hatching, going the opposite direction. Now I'm going to put in my shadow core. I want to shade this a little bit more. Now to put my light in. Notice I'm not going all the way to that shadow core. I'm leaving an area right in here. That would be a mid-tone, which is the paper again. Get a nice overall tone. And then I'll put in my intense light by pressing harder, which will be the highlight. Maybe a little bit hard to see. And what I like to do on these is add just a little bit of reflected light to give it a little bit more of a three-dimensional look. Just a little bit like that. Now we're going to do the same for the ground plane. We're going to give it some contrast. This will make that sphere stand out. I'm pressing real lightly. The main thing I'm doing is changing direction of my strokes to build up a certain tone. I'm not pressing all that hard. Most beginners press too hard. Either they press too hard or not hard enough. Very important you develop a lot of control over your pressure. Drawing on tone paper can help develop that. We go right around that cast shadow. Like that. Now we're going to do another sphere a little differently. This one, let's see here. And we're going to have our cast shadow. Round this off a little bit more. Main thing with this is patience. Now this one, we're just going to do it. Another technique where we're going to use just a shadow core. And we follow the form. Go around like this. And we're going to give it a different type of a highlight. Now these spectral lights, like it, as though it's a spark. You want complete verticals and horizontals. Then you throw in your diagonals. So it's very important to have complete vertical, horizontals. Now for our reflected light, right along here. It's a different type of sphere. Maybe it's a different material, who knows? Another thing I like to do, since we're doing circles right now, basically, is I like to do bubbles. Bubbles are nice. You can really do a lot of things with bubbles. We'll put it like this. You can do infinite bubbles till you get tired. This is about grouping the bubbles. Now what we'll do, let's see, we'll have a bubble here. Now that's our first step in doing the bubbles. Now we're gonna put in our shadow cores on these bubbles. Very easy. All my lessons, I'm trying to make them as easy and simple as possible. But still, you need to practice. Practice is the key. That's the only way you can develop that hand control, that pressure sensitivity, is through actual doing it. Now, we're going to put in a little bit of reflected light on these bubbles. Start to give them a little life. Just one little line. Now this is our reflected light. Now we put in a highlight. And bring the bubbles to life. Let's see, make sure I got highlights on all the bubbles. Let's see here. Yep, maybe one more back here. And now we have a bunch of bubbles. Of course, you can always show distance, or I see bubbles that are closer to you. They're bigger, of course, like this. Maybe they get real big as they come towards you. And the ones that are further away are smaller. Maybe these bubbles are in the distance a little bit. Now we got these, as they come a little closer, maybe they're even bigger. Begin this, now we'll do the same. Shadow cores. Don't see as much in the distant bubbles. Put our shadow cores in. These bubbles are closer and they're bigger. Maybe this one is, let's say about like that maybe. And we'll do the same thing. And some of these, as they're closer, this highlight may be a little brighter, up to you, a little wider. We still got our highlights to put in. That's another effect you can do on tone paper. Now we'll go to our cylinder. We'll go over here. And let's say we're gonna start out with our oval. That's the top of the cylinder. And we'll go down to the sides. And try to make that bottom very similar to the top. And our shadow is going to be maybe something like this. We're going to try to remember, because down here, if you drew through, so that really would be kind of like that. And we're gonna scribble in our cast shadow. Cast shadows are very important. They anchor the object to the ground, or to a horizontal surface, or it could be a vertical surface, whatever. But it really gives it a three-dimensional look when you have a cast shadow. Now, in all my exercises, to make it very simple, all my light's coming from the right. So this area in here is going to be dark. Just like that. And that means that the shadow is over on this side. So we're going to leave just a little spot for reflected light. And I think I might want this a little darker, so I'm going to change direction. I'm not pressing any harder. As I change direction and apply it over the top of the previous lines, it will automatically get darker. Now I'll put in my shadow core. This is very important too. I might want to darken this a little bit more. So I'll change direction. I'll go this way. I'm going to widen this shadow core, feather it out just a little bit. Blend it into that shadow just a little bit. Now I'll use my white pen for light. I'm pressing harder right here, and I'm lightening up my pressure as I go over that way. Put in a little reflected light, maybe down here on this side. A little reflected light down here. Now I'm going to put in my highlight. Now this would be an extreme highlight, maybe on metal or some other shiny surface. But it's very simple. As you can see, most of the cylinder is the middle tone of the paper. And we'll, for further contrast, we'll put a little bit of light back here, pressing real lightly. Doesn't take much pressure. Make that cone, cylinder actually sitting on the surface. Now here's another thing I just thought about as far as my light. I want to do two spheres. This one, the first sphere, we're going to do we're going to light it as though the light is actually coming straight from the side. That is a form of lighting called rim lighting. We're not going to have these actually on the surface. It can be floating in the air, let's say. So for this one, we're going to have this is going to be our light. This is going to simulate the light flat. Now we've got light coming exactly from the left. We would have what we call rim lighting. This is a good effect. Say you're doing an outer space or like a planet, as you'll see. And on down the way, I'll show you how we'll do it even on anatomy. We get the light just on the edge. Now the difference in this is the shadow core is right next to it. And now we'll shade this back here. Now we blend that shadow core in somewhat. And maybe cross-hatch this to make it a little bit darker. As you see, as I change direction, I don't have to press really hard, and it will get dark. Refine this a little bit. Now, we're going to do another one. Now the difference in this particular one is form lighting, where we're going to have the actual light come from the side, but a little bit of an angle into the actual picture plane. This is going to be how our light is coming. This is our light arrow, a little more of a three-dimensional arrow, as opposed to the flat one. Now you can kind of see the difference. This arrow is basically just flat. This one is coming from the angle, but yet you can see it's going into the actual picture plane. That's when we give it form. That's when this comes up. Like this. And this time, I'm going to just give a little highlight right here, maybe a little vertical, horizontal, diagonals, and a little bit of reflected light down here, like that. Two different forms of lighting. Rim lighting, form lighting. We'll get into other lighting on down the ways. I don't want to make it too difficult right now. Okay, we just done a cylinder. Okay, another form would be a triangle. This would be our triangle. But we want to, that's a shape right now. We want to make it into a three-dimensional form. So the first form we're going to make it into is a pyramid. That's where we draw the other side. Simple as that. You have a pyramid. Now we're going to actually put in our cast shadow, which would be somewhat like, let's see. We'll go over this side. We got a side over here. Well, it depends on how that light is. I'm not pressing too hard. I'm building up this shadow. Gradually building it up, not too hard. It'll get dark. That's our cast shadow. Now we're going to do shadow this side of the actual pyramid. I'm going to make this a little darker by changing direction. Not pressing harder, just changing direction. See, when I do this, I'm looking for a certain tone. That doesn't make any difference which direction I go. It's the value of the actual shadow or tone that I'm looking for. That's what matters, not the direction. Now that I've got that, make it a little darker along this edge. Now the light. Along that edge where it's contrast, light against that shadow, maybe a little more intensity right at the top. Now we've got our pyramid. Of course, you can always put your ground plane light in for contrast. Now the next shape with the pyramid shape is a cone. Same triangular shape. But this time, the cone is not flat. Not from this angle. We're going to give it an oval shape. Remember, if you draw through that oval, it goes like this. So our cast shadow, based on that, would be something like that. Cast shadows are very tricky. It depends on the angle of the light, how the distance from the object. We won't go into a lot of that. We're just going to simplify these cast shadows, just to give you an understanding that it's best to put them in because it anchors the subject to the ground plane and makes it look that much more solid and realistic. Now with a cone, as anything else, your shadow follows the form. So I always leave a little bit for my reflected light on the edge. I'm going to darken the shadow core a little bit more. Blend it just a little bit. Now for my highlight. I'm going to come right down here. Of course, you could always fill this in more if you want it brighter, just like I did the pyramid. But I'm just leaving most of the area, the middle tone of the paper. And if we had another form of this cone, maybe upside down, such like a funnel, we put our oval in. Yes. Same, and we shadow it the same as we did the cylinder. this cast shadow is going to be weird. It's going to probably fan out like this. Right from that point. This one, I'm just going to put a shadow core in. Simplify it. That's the shadow core. Now to my light. Like this. Reflected light. And we've got our cube, sphere, cylinder, and our triangle, or I should say pyramid, and our cone. Now if we take these and extrapolate a little bit more, for say objects such as maybe, we'll try rocks down here. My favorite thing, rocks. Good exercise. First you do your contour of your rock any kind of way. And I'm going to put another rock right beside it. Maybe it's another rock over here. These go like this. Now we've got our contours of our rocks. So now we're going to put our shadow in. Think of the design of this rock as you put that shadow in. Different facings and areas of that rock. Now we're going to the shadow core right here. I'm going to darken this a little bit more as it goes under. And areas here, facing of this rock. That's rock number one. Do the same here. These are real simple, quick ways. Remember, these are like sketches if you were going to do a painting, and you can refine it even tighter and make it an actual drawing if you decide to do that. But as for our preliminary work, you can't beat this. Now, cast shadows. The ground could be very irregular. Doesn't have to be, it could be all kind of little indentations and anything in the ground. Same principle though. Cast shadows here. I'm going to do this one like this. And this one here. So all three have their little cast shadows, and maybe the ground, like I said, could be pretty irregular. They are on the ground and everything. little bit darker right in here maybe. Maybe darken that plane a little bit more. Now we've done basic line work and shadow. Now we put the light in. Just imagine the light shining on these rocks. And for this one, I'm going to make a little light coming right through here. This ground plane, maybe right between these rocks. Kind of touching on some of this ground plane. And maybe a little reflected light in some of these areas, maybe. Now we've got rocks. Real quick and easy. And my thing I like the most, since I've got this here, it reminds me of maybe a moon. So what I'm going to do is put some maybe mountains in. Maybe it's could be Earth, could be anywhere. Who knows? The thing I do is start to figure out my shadow area. How you build up an actual composition very quickly with tone paper. I'm shadowing the side of the mountain. I think I'll maybe put some more back, a little something back here. It's kind of empty. Like that. And this one here. Maybe this side. I'll put my areas in like this. It'll really come alive when I start putting the light in. That's when you really notice it. Now this side of the mountain, you can put as much detail or less. Even though it's the shadow side, sometimes you still see some things in here. some areas that are darker than others. Maybe some detail, depends on how dark it is. The amount of detail you want to put on that shadow side. Main thing is put all your, basically your shadow in first before you get to that light. Put all these areas in. The same with this here. Go back here. As I said before, mountains are infinite. Mountains and rocks are infinite. Unless you're doing a particular mountain that would be recognizable, who's to say how it looks? It's your imagination. It can look any way you want it. Now I've got that in. Now the fun part, putting in the light. We're gonna do some contrast back here and maybe make this one light hitting back here first against the back of this mountain. And we put some light back here maybe. That contrast, that's making this mountain stand out already before I even hit it with the light. We'll follow some of this form and lighten it up as we go. Just imagine light hitting different areas. Little bits of light here and there. Some areas receive a little more light than others. That way it's not flat. And we'll do the same with the one in front of it. And we'll get this one over here. It looks like it needs a little light right there. As it gets down in here, so you determine where you want that light, where you want to stand out. And maybe if it is in the atmosphere of the sky, we put some stars back here maybe. Maybe a little galactic stuff going through the atmosphere. And you can always go back and refine these. You always see something that you want to touch up. You know, artist's work is always, it's hardly ever finished. Even after you finish a painting, years later you'll look at it and see something that you wanted to, you should have did this or did that. Sometimes you just can't help it. Like I can go back and forth on this for, you refine it more and more and more, and you begin to get a look of a mountain range. And of course you can do all kind of little things with it, refine it even more. When I do this, I'm just changing direction. I'm not pressing hard. Just changing direction will make it darker and more contrast. Remember, light against dark, dark against light gives you that contrast. So you get a lot of contrast from. Okay, I'm trying to think, I want to make this one not too long. Let's see. That's about it right now. We're going to do more of these tone drawings, especially if you have any kind of questions. The main thing is you control your hand pressure, the sensitivity. Remember, the harder you press with the white pen, the more intense the light is on the subject. And of course, it's very obvious the harder you press with the black pen, the more shadow you have. But it's the intensity of the light that you probably have to get used to. You've probably been using black ink for the longest on white paper. This is the one you got to get used to. That's your light. The harder you press, the more intense the light is. I could even make, if I wanted to make lightning come down or something, I would jag it. See, I'm pressing pretty hard right here. That's where I'm pressing hard to maybe make a lightning bolt. Something jagged, powerful. Okay, I'm going to leave you with an example of a few things that I've done with my tone paper. I like all type of little monsters and things, so this is something I've been working on. Dragons, monsters, whatever comes to my fantasy. Some of this I may actually turn into a painting down the way, who knows? But you can see some of the effects. Over here, I actually did a value scale with the on the tone paper. With the lightest light, I did a 9-step value scale using the white pen for the lightest, the black ink for the darkest, and value number 5 was the middle tone. This would be value number 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. That's 6, 7, 8, and value 9 going that way. And you can kind of see a value scale. And I did a few of my little monsters and things that I like to do. Get a kick out of it. Just some ideas. From time to time, I may show you some of the things that I've done using tone paper. So this one's going to be a little bit short, even though it's an hour, but you get the idea. So until next time, hey, keep drawing and practice on this using your pens. Till next time, Dave out.